Go on, I dare you." Mark's words, laced with amusement and a cruel hint of a dare, hung in the air. He knew, we all did, that I couldn't resist a challenge, especially not one involving the legendary Wilson Hall. Wilson Hall, with its imposing Gothic architecture, was more than just a dormitory. It was the heart of Ohio University, shrouded in whispers of the supernatural. I'd heard the stories, dismissed them as silly myths freshmen like us told to scare each other. But that night, under the pale glow of the moon, the stories felt different. Real. The dare was simple. Spend a night alone in Wilson Hall. The stories about Wilson Hall were as numerous as the bricks that formed its imposing structure. Most revolved around the suicides of 3 students. Each took their lives in the same room, decades apart. Room 428. The room had been sealed since the 1970s, a silent testament to the tragedies. Some whispered of flickering lights, disembodied voices, and phantom footsteps echoing in the dead of night. Until tonight, they had always been just stories, fuel for late-night talks and nervous laughter. But as I stepped into the echoing silence of the deserted hall, a shiver snaked down my spine. The air inside was cold, stagnant. The silence was heavy, broken only by the frantic thump of my own heart. I walked through the deserted hallways, my footsteps the only sound in the oppressive quiet. Each creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind in the ancient trees outside the windows, sent shivers down my spine. I wandered deeper into the building, my hand trailing along the cold, rough stone walls. The air grew colder, the silence more profound. My breath formed white puffs in the chilly air, each exhale a testament to the growing unease within me. I reached the old library, its shelves still lined with books untouched for decades. Moonlight spilled through the arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The musty scent of decaying paper and time hung heavy in the air, suffocating me. I imagined students from another era, their presence still lingering in the quiet whispers of the wind. It was foolish, irrational, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The silence, once oppressive, was now broken by a new sound. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on a table. It seemed to be coming from the floor above. Section 5. Things go wrong. I froze, holding my breath. The tapping continued, slow, deliberate. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. Slowly, I climbed the stairs, each step heavy with dread. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to be coming from the end of the hallway, where a single light bulb flickered above a door. 428. The numbers seemed to burn into my vision, a brand seared into my mind. This was it, the sealed room, the source of the legends. As I neared the door, the tapping stopped. The sound had been incessant, a rhythmic drumming that echoed through the empty halls, growing louder with each step I took. But now, silence. A heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to press down on me from all sides. A heavy silence descended, more unnerving than the noise had been. It was as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat a deafening thud in the quiet. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched the cold brass doorknob. The metal was icy against my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with thoughts of what might lie beyond the door. It wouldn't turn. The door was locked, just as it should be. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The sense of being watched, of not being alone, was overwhelming. I could feel eyes on me, unseen but unmistakable. But then, why did I feel so observed? The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I turned slowly, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The hallway stretched out before me, empty and silent, but the feeling of being watched persisted. As I turned to leave, I heard it. A faint sound, barely more than a whisper, but unmistakable. It was a soft, mournful sigh, right next to my ear. The sound sent a chill through me, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat. A soft, mournful sigh, right next to my ear. It was a whisper of despair, carrying the weight of immeasurable sorrow. The sound was so close, it felt as if the source was standing right beside me, invisible but present. It was a whisper of despair, carrying the weight of immeasurable sorrow. The sadness in that whisper was palpable, and it seemed to seep into my very bones, filling me with a sense of dread and hopelessness. Panic flooded me. I had to get out of there. The need to escape was overwhelming, and I could feel my pulse quickening, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the silent hallway. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the silent hallway. The sound of my own movement was deafening in the stillness, and I could feel the walls closing in around me, the darkness pressing in from all sides. But the faster I ran, the further away the exit seemed to be. The hallway stretched on endlessly, the door at the far end always just out of reach. Desperation clawed at me, and I pushed myself to run faster, my legs burning with the effort. But no matter how hard I tried, the exit remained elusive, a distant promise of safety that I could never quite reach. I was turned around, lost in the labyrinthine corridors of Wilson Hall. Every turn led to another darkened hallway, another locked door. And then, I saw it again. The door with the number 428. It was as if the building itself was guiding me, drawing me inexorably towards the source of its darkness. I tried to resist, to turn away, but it was no use. My hand, as if possessed by a will of its own, reached out and grasped the doorknob. This time, it turned. The room was pitch black, the air thick with the smell of dust and decay. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards beneath my feet. I could feel the weight of the years pressing down on me, the history of the place seeping into my bones. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching me, waiting for something. I fumbled for my phone, my hand shaking so badly that I could barely turn on the flashlight. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat echoing in the stillness. The darkness seemed to close in around me, suffocating, as I struggled to get a grip on my fear. Finally, with a trembling finger, I managed to press the button, and the light flickered to life. The beam of light flickered to life, illuminating a small, dusty room. The air was thick with particles, dancing in the beam like tiny specters. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, the once vibrant patterns now faded and ghostly. It was a room frozen in time, untouched by the world outside. There was a single bed, a desk, a chair. Each piece of furniture was a relic of a bygone era, their surfaces covered in a thick layer of dust. The bed was neatly made as if waiting for someone to return, the desk cluttered with old papers and books, the chair positioned just so, as if someone had just left the room, all covered in a thick layer of dust, undisturbed for decades. It was as if time had stopped in this room, the outside world forgotten. The silence was oppressive, the air heavy with the weight of the past. I could almost hear the whispers of those who had once lived here, their voices carried on the still air. And then, I saw it, a detail that sent a chill down my spine. My breath caught in my throat as I took a step closer, the beam of the flashlight trembling in my hand. It was something that didn't belong, something that stood out in the eerie stillness of the room. On the wall, scrawled in what looked like blood, were 3 words: "Don't trust them." The letters were jagged, as if written in a hurry, the red stark against the faded wallpaper. It was a message, a warning, left by someone who had been here before me, someone who had faced the same darkness, the same fear. The flashlight slipped from my grasp, plunging the room into darkness once more. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to pick it up, my fingers brushing against the cold, dusty floor. The darkness was absolute, swallowing me whole, and I could feel the presence of the house closing in around me. I felt a cold hand close around my wrist, its grip like ice. It was a touch that sent a jolt of terror through me, freezing me in place. The hand was strong, unyielding, and I could feel the chill seeping into my bones. I was not alone in the darkness, and whatever was with me had no intention of letting me go. I don't remember much after that. I have flashes of memory, running through the dark, the feeling of being chased, the cold air biting at my skin, and the sound of my own ragged breath echoing in my ears. It was as if the night itself had come alive, wrapping me in its suffocating embrace. The blood-curdling scream that tore from my throat was unlike anything I had ever heard before. It was raw, primal, a sound born of pure, unadulterated fear. I woke up on the lawn outside Wilson Hall, my body trembling, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. The morning sun was warm on my face, a stark contrast to the icy dread that still gripped my heart. My friends were standing over me, their faces a mixture of relief and concern. They had been searching for me all night, their worry growing with each passing hour. I never told them what I saw that night. How could I? They wouldn't have believed me. The shadowy figure, the whispers in the dark, the feeling of being watched. It was all too surreal, too terrifying to put into words. I kept it all to myself, burying the memories deep within. But I knew, deep in my bones, that Wilson Hall held secrets, dark and terrible. Secrets that whispered on the wind, secrets that seemed to call out to me, even in the light of day. The building stood there, silent and foreboding, a monument to the unknown horrors it concealed. The wind would rustle through the trees, carrying with it the faintest hints of those whispers, as if the very air was alive with the secrets of Wilson Hall. And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my core that those secrets were not meant to be uncovered. That night changed me. It left a mark on my soul, a reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our understanding. I would never go back to Wilson Hall. The memories, the fear, the whispers, they would stay with me forever. And so, I walked away, vowing to never return, to never again let the shadows of that place touch my life.